Oh my god, I forgot to check on Dr. Effect and E-Joy.
Hi, ERod. Shouldn't you be filming right now?
Yeah, Shira is going to fire you.
I just wanted to check on both of you and make sure that you were okay.
I'm fine.
Honky dory, boss.
Good. I'm gonna go shoot that video.
Man, that was weird.
Yeah, very weird.
Well, I'm signing off.
Okay, goodbye, Elizabeth.
Shut up! Rarity, are you okay? Oh, I'm so sorry.
We must pay tribute to our icons, because they are an essential part of who we are. It's time to talk about the King. Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. I'm ERod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster. There are plenty of great genre films out there that we still scrutinize just because they are remakes, reboots, and sequels of movies that we love. When this happens, it's time for a little segment I like to call Pros and Cons. In this segment, I weigh the good qualities of a film against the bad ones. Today, we give the pros and cons treatment to a film that tried to reboot one of the most acclaimed and enduring fanboy franchises of all time, and one of Japan's greatest icons. Godzilla. The nuclear bomb test of the 1940s gave birth to a godlike being with an appetite for destruction. The king of the monsters, an unstoppable kaiju dedicated to cause as much devastation as the bombs that created him. Originally considered by many to be a villainous force of nature, throughout the 60s Godzilla's image changed. As more and more giant monsters were born out of the atomic age, it quickly became clear that Godzilla was the only force powerful enough to stop them. So the king of the monsters became a necessary evil, an anti-hero, an unofficial defender of humanity. Now, remaking or rebooting Godzilla in the States is nothing new. The 1998 remake is considered by many to be a very poor interpretation of the character. In fact, many critics and fans alike agree that the film's main flaw is that Godzilla is not in it. Yes, a giant lizard attacks New York, but he doesn't act like or resemble the iconic kaiju in any way. In fact, Japanese fans don't even refer to the American version as Godzilla. They simply call him Zilla. Suffice it to say, the fanbase was terribly uneasy when it was announced that Warner Brothers was distributing a second American Godzilla reboot. However, reactions to the trailers were generally positive, and the film was #1 the weekend it premiered, garnering enough of a box office gross to justify an upcoming sequel. But many still debate its quality, so let's start analyzing this kaiju with its integral nuclear core. The plot. Giant monsters are real, and a covert group called Monarch works to study them and make sure that they remain a secret, until 1999, when a creature known as Muto, massive unidentified terrestrial organism, hatches from a spore and burrows under a nuclear power plant in Japan, in order to feed on the radiation, inadvertently breaching the reactor and causing the power plant to collapse. killing hundreds of people, including the wife of Joe Brody, who spends the next 15 years studying the phenomenon that killed his wife and co-workers, even to the degree of dragging his son, Ford, who's a straight-laced soldier, along during his insane investigation. They discover the Monarch headquarters just in time to see Muto emerge from a cocoon in its adult form. It escapes and it begins its life cycle, calling upon its mate so they can procreate, which would potentially mean that the world would be overrun with these giant monstrosities. With the military forces of the world ill-equipped to stop the Mutos, there is only one force on the planet powerful enough to stop them: the Alpha Predator, the original creature discovered by Monarch in the 50s, Godzilla. Will the king of the monsters be able to hunt down the Mutos and kill them before their offspring hatch? Or will their battle decimate the entire planet? So, is this a good plot or a bad plot? Well, let's do this a little bit backwards as we first address one of the most common complaints about this movie. Cons. A lot of the fans felt that this film was way too melodramatic, and that it focused way too much on the tragedy and the chaos caused by the monsters as opposed to the action and the monster fights. Now, there are two really good reasons not to dismiss this as meaningless fanboy gripes. Number one, this was a summer movie, and traditionally summer films are a lot more high energy and fun than your run-of-the-mill disaster movie. And number two, most of the Godzilla films fall into the high energy and fun category. So if these unenthusiastic fans are correct, what could possibly make anyone disagree with them? Pros. This movie takes Godzilla back to his roots. The original film wasn't a high-energy, fun summer blockbuster. It was a dramatic social commentary on the consequences of nuclear energy and weapons. Godzilla represents nature lashing out against humanity's abuse, and punishing us for causing such destruction just to impose our might. The reboot explores very similar themes, like for example, Monarch's arrogance at trying to destroy, control, or hide these creatures, when the harsh reality of it all is that no one can control nature. So as far as the tone is concerned, this movie is the most faithful reboot thus far.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Alright, while most of us watch kaiju movies in order to see giant monsters do battle, the fact of the matter is, all of these movies have to have a human factor. So let's take a moment to talk about the exposition-spewing hapless victims of this monster mash. Cast in characters. While the human scenes in these movies are usually regarded as the most boring scenes, they are a necessary evil, as they make the film more relatable by giving you an understanding of how different people react to these improbable situations. And also, due to the fact that the monsters don't talk.
Something funny going on. You better check. Oh, yeah.
Alright, they don't talk most of the time. The chore of explaining everything to the audience falls upon the human characters. Yes, the humans are usually the most boring characters, but for the sake of the narrative, they have to exist. Pros. The cast of this movie is awesome. Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Ken Watanabe. These are phenomenal actors. Ken is pretty much there to deliver exposition, and there are very few better choices, as he is the master of delivering epic lines during dramatic close-ups.
We call him Godzilla.
The first act of the movie is pretty much from Joe's point of view, until he dies, and then Ford takes over as the protagonist, as he witnesses and miraculously survives each of the monster attacks. And I also felt that it was brilliant how the film is peppered with subtle little parallels between Ford and Godzilla. The events are set into motion when another kaiju dies, therefore making Godzilla the last of his kind. And out of that kaiju's body hatch the Mutos, who are essentially parasites. This sets Godzilla on his path to hunt and destroy the Mutos. At the same time, the first Muto that hatched out of the dead kaiju indirectly kills Ford's mother, which sets him and his father on their path to find the cause of the accident. And eventually, Ford volunteers his skills as a bomb specialist to stop the giant creatures. And yes, I found it very, very, very appropriate that both him and Godzilla collapse together at the end, in their parallel attempts to stop these menacing monsters.
Cons.
For starters, Joe dies way too early in the movie, and I do realize that his death is an important part of the story, but the trailers of this film made it seem like Bryan Cranston was in the whole movie, which is a huge misleading letdown for those of us who are huge fans of his. Other than that, I have nothing negative to say about the cast itself, except for a little itty-bitty little observation, which is an extreme coincidence that is nobody's fault. In this movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen play husband and wife, and in Avengers Age of Ultron, they play brother and sister. So, knowing that while going in to see this movie made scenes like this a little weird. Ugh, it's like they're acting out scenes from Ultimates Volume 3. Look, point is, it's just a coincidence. The actors in this movie are great, and I'm sure that Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen would never do anything in any movie resembling incest. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Yeah? She did what? In what, boy? Wow. Point is, the actors are great. Unfortunately, there is way too much of them in this movie. When I first saw this film, I felt that there was just enough human content. When I watched it a second time, already being aware of all the exposition and backstory, the human scenes just seemed to drag a lot more. Hell, it's 30 minutes into the movie before one of the Mutos shows up, and 59 minutes before Godzilla shows up. That's pretty much an hour! In fact, even though this movie has 960 visual effects shots, Godzilla is in only 8 minutes of the movie. It doesn't feel that way because his presence is always looming, but ultimately this movie needed more monsters fighting and less humans talking.
I'm bored. You're boring, Zoidberg. I'm gonna go watch TV.
Alright, let's talk about the elements that divided the fan base the most.
Design and effects.
Traditionally, Godzilla is usually played by a live performer in a suit, and as silly as that might sound, Toho has broken down creature suit work to an art form. In the 1998 remake, Zilla was a bunch of CG predestined to one day look outdated. In this movie, the filmmaker struck a happy medium.
Pros.
While Godzilla may be 500,000 polygons of expensive CG, his movements were initially performed in capture motion by stuntman and professional martial artist TJ Storm during the conceptualization stage of the film. So as far as I'm concerned, we're getting the best of both worlds. As far as the design goes, a lot of Japanese fans complained that Godzilla looked fat. With all due respect, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think he looks proportionate. His lower body would have to be bigger in order to support a torso that big. Plus, he still looks close enough to the Toho design to do it justice, all the while looking more like an existing animal, a powerful land predator like a bear, and yet he still looks regal, like an eagle. I'm not going to be bold and say that this is the best design the character has ever had, but it's definitely in the top 5. So yes, as far as I'm concerned, Godzilla looks awesome in this movie. I wish I could say the same about the other monsters.
Cons.
The Mutos are lame! AVGN already pointed this out, and I agree. It's the same shitty, unimaginative design as the Cloverfield monster. Plus, these things are small and skinny compared to Godzilla. They might pose a threat to us lowly humans, but I never had a doubt in my mind that the second that Godzilla got a hold of them, they were done for. Well, I will admit that they are better opponents than Charles Barkley. Next time, could we please let one of the designers from Toho or Guillermo del Toro design the monsters? let's move on to the centerpiece of every kaiju movie.
The action sequences.
Once again, we're gonna do this backwards.
Cons.
Now, this has been pointed out by everybody and their mom, so let's go ahead and get it out of the way. The entire movie builds up to Godzilla fighting the Mutos, so after an hour of waiting, after Godzilla makes his grand entrance, the two meet.
It's about to go down.
The two roar, ready to clash in a cascade of carnage that will decimate the entire city. And then they cut away. This is not a joke, they actually cut away. And I would be able to forgive them if this was the only time it happened in the movie. But it happens once, twice, 3 times a cock tease. So what is the positive side of a giant monster movie that barely has any giant monster fights in it?
Pros.
When Godzilla and the Mutos finally clash, it is glorious, showcasing all of Godzilla's signature moves. Well, most of them. Come on, I cannot be the only one that wanted to see Godzilla perform his anti-gravity dropkick. But we do get to see him do the tail whip and unleash his atomic breath, motherfucker! Yeah, eat it, bitch! Oh, interesting fact, when TJ Storm performed this scene during the capture motion stage, he actually used the head from a Barney suit to fire the atomic breath into. I would pay cold, hard cash to see that footage. So the movie does deliver the monster mayhem. Unfortunately, you have to wait a while to truly see it happen. Thankfully, there are a few good action sequences along the way. A major highlight being that amazing Halo jump into San Francisco in the middle of one of Godzilla's battles. Unfortunately, I would rather be seeing that than a bunch of guys parachuting. In conclusion, this is a well-made movie, and a fine entry into the series. It just seriously needed more monster action, which admittedly could be remedied in an upcoming sequel. So before we close this out, these are the top 5 kaiju I want to see in an upcoming Godzilla movie. Number 5, he's as big as Godzilla and he can fly, Destroyer. Number 4, he's a friend to children everywhere, Jet Jaguar. Number 3, Godzilla's evil robotic twin, Mechagodzilla. Number 2, my favorite kaiju, Mothra. There were a few hints in this movie alluding to her presence, so I hope she eventually makes an appearance. And last but not least, number 1, Godzilla's arch nemesis, King Ghidorah, or Ghidra if you prefer. Originally, he was supposed to be the villain in this movie, but the filmmakers felt that he didn't fit in with the whole man versus nature theme. It was revealed that Legendary Studios did acquire the rights to the character along with the Godzilla franchise, making him the most likely kaiju to appear in the sequel. So here's to hoping. In the meantime, write in the comment section below and let me know which kaiju you want to see in the next Godzilla movie, as well as what movies you want me to give the pros and cons treatment to. Until next time, I'm ERod, and I'm the... What the hell is that? Jarvis, what's happening?
Someone is reviewing Transformers 4, sir.
What? That's the movie that I'm planning to review for my 200th episode next week. Find them.
Location acquired, sir.
I'm headed there right now.
Sir, you have never been concerned with producer dibs in the past.
Your concern is noted. But I can't let this one pass. My show, my reviews, the Blockbuster Buster, it all started with Transformers. So I can't let somebody beat me to this. One day, everybody will remember exactly where they were the day an angry critic took a stand to harp on a movie first.
It hardly seems like a worthy cause, sir.
Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back in time for breakfast. Alonzi! By the power invested in me by the Legion of Badassitude, cease and desist all your bad movie busting activities. So put that hammer down before I put you down.
Oh, you overly dramatic douche nozzle!
You.
Me.
You do know Transformers was my first review, right?
Me too!
I guess there's only one way this is gonna go down.